Thorn looked at the speaker. He was a young fellow with an especially elaborate uniform and a face that appeared weak and dissipated in spite of the arrogant Arvanian nose. Then a bark came to Thorn's ears, and a cold feeling to the pit of Thorn's stomach. The newcomer had brought a dog with him. Even as he gazed apprehensively at the dog, a rangy wolfhound, the brute growled deep in its throat and stared at the corner by the buffet where Thorn was instinctively trying to make himself smaller. The dog growled again and stalked warily toward the buffet. "Grego, down," said his master absently. Then to the spare man at the head of the table, "I have been next door, talking to the American Secretary of War, a dull fellow. Convinced is he that Arvanian harbors only kind thoughts for this great stupid nation. They shall be utterly unprepared for our attack. Grego, what ails the brute?" The wolfhound had evaded several outstretched hands and got to the buffet. There it crouched and cowered, fangs showing in a snarl, eyes reddening wickedly, while the growl rattled louder in its shaggy throat. "Perhaps the heat has affected him," said one. All were looking at the dog now, marveling at its odd behavior. But of all the eyes that observed it, a pair of unseen eyes watched with utmost agitation. Thorn stared, almost hypnotized, at the creature. A dog! What rotten luck! Men might be fooled by the masking invisibility, but there was no deceiving a dog's keen nose. The wolfhound started forward as though to leap, then settled back. Plainly it longed to spring. Equally plainly it was afraid of the being that so impossibly was revealed to its nostrils but not to its eyes. Meanwhile, one tearing sweep of blunt claws or sharp fangs, and a fatal rent would appear in Thorn's encasing shell. The dog snapped tentatively. Thorn flattened still harder against the wall, with discovery and death hovering very close about him. Then the beast's master intervened. "Grego! Here, sir! A council room is no place for thee, anyway. Here, I say! So, then—" He hastened to the dog and caught its collar. Twisting the leather cruelly, he dragged the protesting, snarling brute to the doors and slid them shut, with the wolfhound barking and growling on the outside. "Someone put him in his kennel," he said through the panels. A scuffling in the hall told of the execution of the order. The council room became quiet again, and Thorn leaned against the wall and closed his eyes for an instant. "We were saying, Soyo," the leader addressed the dog's owner, "that the Ziegler plans start for Arvania tomorrow night. All is arranged. These innocent-looking bits of paper," he thumped a small packet of documents lying before him, "shall deliver mighty America to us." A subdued cheer answered the man's words, while Thorn stared at the packet of papers with unbelieving eyes. It had never occurred to him that the Ziegler plans might be in that very room, on the table with the rest of the welter of letters, thumbed documents, and cups and saucers. And there they were, the vital projector plans, not in a safe or hidden in some fantastic place, but right before his eyes. Involuntarily his hand extended eagerly toward the packet, then was withdrawn. Not now. He was invisible, but the papers, if he grasped them, would not be. Clenched in his unseen hand, they would be perfectly visible, moving in jerks and starts as he raced for the door. Like lightning his mind turned over one plan after another for making away with that precious packet. Each scheme seemed impossible of fulfillment. "The biggest difficulty is in getting them out of the country," the spare elderly man was saying, "but we have solved that. Solved it simply. I myself shall bear them, sewn in my clothes, to our native land. The American authorities could search, on some pretext, any other of our number who tried to smuggle them out, but me they dare not lay a finger on. That would be an overt act." Thorn's thoughts whirled desperately on. Wait till later, and follow whoever left the room with the plans? But he hated to let them get out of his sight. And at this point he became suddenly aware that the man named Corey was gazing fixedly at him. Thorn was between the section of the table where Corey sat and the angular buffet end. Corey could not possibly see anything but the shining mahogany, thought Thorn, and yet the man's eyes were narrowing to ominous slits as he started in his direction. Thorn held his breath. Was the shielding film changing in structure? Were the repolarized atoms slowly losing their straight line arrangement, allowing light rays to penetrate to his body instead of diverting them to form a pocket of invisibility around him? The film had never acted like that before, but never before had Thorn applied it to living flesh, with its disintegrating heat and moisture. "Excellency," said Corey at last, a hard edge to his voice, "look thou at that buffet. No, no, the end nearest my chair." "Well," said the elderly man, "I see nothing." Thorn breathed a sigh of relief, but the relief was to be of short duration. "Come to my place, if thou wilt, and see from here," said Corey. The leader got up and came to Corey's place. Corey pointed straight at Thorn. "There, seest thou anything out of the ordinary?" "I see nothing," said the leader after a moment. "Thine eyes, Corey, are not good." "They are the eyes of a hawk," said Corey stubbornly, "and they see this. The vertical line of the end of that buffet does not continue straightly up and down. At its middle the line is broken, then continues up, a fraction of an inch to the side, like an object seen under water, distorted by the sun rays that strike the surface." Thorn fairly jumped away from the buffet and stood against bare wall. Fool, of course the light refraction would not be perfect. Why hadn't he thought of that? Thought to stand clear of revealing vertical lines. "There, it is gone," said Corey, blinking. "But something, Excellency, made that distortion of line. And something made Soyo's wolfhound act as it did. Something." "Art thou attempting to say a spy listens unseen in this room?" demanded the gray-mustachioed Arvanian. "Something is odd, that is all I say." All eyes were ranging along the wall against which Thorn leaned his back. All eyes finally turned to Corey. "It is nonsense. I see nothing whatever." "Corey has drunk of champagne in place of tea," were some of the exclamations. And then occurred the thing that in Thorn's perilous position was like the self-signing of his own death warrant. He sneezed. That agony of helplessness, as a man's nose wrinkles and twitches and, in spite of the most desperate attempts at repression, the betraying sound forces its way out. How many men have lost their lives because of that insistent, soft nasal explosion which can be smothered but not entirely hushed? Thorn had felt the sneeze coming on for seconds. He had fought it frantically, with life itself at stake. But he could not hold it back. In his naked body, beginning to burn with fever from the long clogged pores and insulated not at all by the film from the coolness of the room, the seeds of that soft explosion had been planted, and they would bear fruit. So he had sneezed. Instantly there was chaos. Men looked at each other, back at the blank wall from which had come the painfully muffled sound. Then all sprang to their feet. "Champagne, is it?" Corey exulted savagely. "Did I not say my eyes were those of a hawk?" "Double guard all doors!" roared the Arvanian leader.